Tonight, the care home COVID failure. Relatives of people who died when untested hospital patients were discharged to care homes say they're considering legal action.
She should still be here with me, and she's not. So, yeah, every day it's very difficult, but it's even more difficult knowing that that death could have been prevented.
Also making the headlines, fill in the form. The deadline for completing the census is pushed back by 4 weeks because almost a quarter of households in Scotland still haven't done it.
And in sport, the Rangers fans are in Leipzig in their numbers ahead of tonight's Europa League semi-final.
I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Nicola Sturgeon is being accused of a cover-up over the contracts for the 2 delayed ferries being built at Ferguson's on the Clyde. The vessels are running 5 years late and more than double the original cost.
At First Minister's questions, the Scottish Conservatives accused her of botching the contracts and covering up the mistakes. Here's our political editor, Colin Mackay.
You can wait a while for a ferry, just ask people in Arran or the Western Isles. They've been waiting years for new ferries being built at the Ferguson's yard. Finally, things seem to be moving there, with the new boss staking his reputation on delivering 2 vessels next year. But political reputations are on the line too, with documents on the original deal still missing.
We're saying there's a missing piece of evidence, convener, about that final important step about how ministers arrived at that decision to award the overall contract to Ferguson in light of those unusual circumstances.
The unusual circumstances were that the company couldn't give the normal money-back guarantee to the taxpayer. That's what the Public Audit Committee is investigating, and it's what the Conservatives pursued at First Minister's questions.
The vital document, it has vanished into thin air. Yeah. So can the First Minister say, with a straight face, that this does not look like an almighty cover-up? Yeah. And I'll ask again, because she didn't answer, where has that document gone?
On the 8th of October 2015, a submission goes to ministers asking for confirmation that ministers have considered the CMAL note, are aware of the potential procurement and financial risks. Of course, the mitigations are set out in this submission and are content to proceed. The next day, Transport Scotland write to CMAL and they say Scottish ministers have seen and understood the risk paper and have noted and accepted the technical and commercial risks and have decided to proceed. So the decision is recorded there. The bit that is missing is that link in the chain in between these two things that simply say the minister is content. But the fact that ministers were content is narrated in the document the next day.
But it is still missing, leaving it up to the Parliament's Audit Committee to fill in the holes when they question officials and ministers, past and present. Colin Mackay, STV News.
Well, our political editor joins us now. So, Colin, what happens next at committee?
Well, the Public Audit Committee is finished effectively with the Auditor General, so they'll move on, they say, to the accountable officers of the organisations, the kind of official civil service-y type organisations involved. So that's Caledonian Maritime Assets, CMAL as they're known, who actually manage the vessels and the procurement of the vessels, Transport Scotland, who are heavily involved in all of this, and also the Ferguson's Marine Management at the time. They'll also then go to ministers and former ministers, as I said there. That will include the former Transport Minister, Derek Mackay. Now, he left government after being disgraced for online contacts with a 16-year-old boy. We haven't heard anything from him as a politician since then. He just stepped down as an MSP at the election last year. Now, after that, they will ultimately want to speak directly to the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, as well. The First Minister said today that no one working at Ferguson's would be stopped or gagged from giving evidence to that committee, but some former senior officials at Ferguson's do have non-disclosure agreements, so that still has to be got round, because she said that nobody currently working at Ferguson's. What about people who used to work there? So there's possibly still some dubiety over that. That's what she said at First Minister's Questions. But so far, no one connected to these two ferries has walked away from it remotely unscathed. Even at the committee today, the Auditor General looked a bit sheepish when he was asked by the Labour MSP Rhoda Grant. She said, "Did you ask the accountable officer at Transport Scotland who at a ministerial level signed this off?" He said they didn't ask the question. That's why he looked a bit sheepish.
All right, Colin, from the Scottish Parliament, thanks very much for joining us. Now, households now have an extra 4 weeks to complete the census because completion rates across the country are too low. Just under a quarter have still to send a response to the survey.
The deadline had been this Sunday. The extension is to ensure everyone has an opportunity to be included in shaping services. But some people say they are struggling to fill in the form. Our political correspondent, Ewan Petrie, reports.
We know that some people are finding the form very bewildering.
Filling in the census can prove difficult, especially for those living with a disability.
A quarter of disabled people in Scotland can't access the internet. The rising cost of living is likely to be driving more people away from that. A third lack the essential skills necessary to use the internet. So, whilst it's a digital-first approach with this census, and there are alternatives, it can be extremely off-putting for some disabled people.
Language can also prove a barrier. This Chinese elderly centre has been helping people trying to navigate the website in English.
We also try the helpline as English as well, so it says the helpline will provide you with language support, but the information, the ultimate information is in English. As again, if you don't understand English, you don't speak English, it's really hard for you to navigate through that.
Failure to fill in the census can lead to a fine of up to £1,000. It was due to run last year, but was pushed back because of COVID. However, just over 3/4 of households have returned their census so far, with wide variation across local authorities. Among the highest rates are East Renfrewshire and Aberdeenshire. Glasgow had the lowest rates, with almost a third of households still to respond.
Don't even know what that is. No, sorry.
I was supposed to be yesterday, but it's a bit anyway.
I've not got a computer, it's quite difficult though. I'm not very good at that, I had to get somebody to help me.
To get a more accurate survey, the Scottish Government has extended Sunday's deadline to the end of May.
It's essential we maximise participation and ensure that everyone is heard and their needs captured. It's vital that we secure as high a response rate as possible so that the census can be effective in delivering its many benefits for future public services.
The SNP government's handling of Scotland's census has been nothing short of disastrous. Needlessly delayed by a year, costing taxpayers an extra £30 million.
The census is not only vital for issuing public funds and setting policies, it also gives important historical information. These records, dating from 1821, stored here at the Glasgow City Archive, give a detailed breakdown of the population at the time. The next 4 weeks will determine how accurate a record is left of 2022. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
To COVID now, and the heroes on the front line. NHS Lothian has released a film documenting the pandemic. It's aimed at highlighting the extraordinary work carried out by the health service.
The film includes first-hand accounts of those who treated Scotland's first COVID patient and the first to die of the virus. Indigo Stafford joined staff at Edinburgh's Western General for the premiere.
Tonight, the first coronavirus death in Scotland. A patient who is being treated by Lothian Health Board has died.
We actually obviously knew that patient, and it was all them people could talk about as well.
Reliving some of the toughest moments of their lives.
Exhausting. Makes you proud of the NHS, but exhausting.
Emotions ran high as staff reflected on some of the unprecedented challenges they faced.
Many a time we had a husband and wife in the same room, and sometimes one of them died and one of them survived. So things like that were difficult, and I think they're the things that stick in my head.
The one-hour documentary aims to show the remarkable commitment of NHS staff who put their own lives at risk to save others.
For me, I just didn't want to take my mask off because I was seeing on telly that people from ethnic minority backgrounds were dying.
First time I went to ICU, and I'll take that image to the day I die because it was horrendous. People lifeless, ventilators.
Oh, my mum got out and my mum died. And that was bad, do you know, because, and then you had to come back to work.
We wanted to make a film to capture the difficult and unique experiences that our staff has been through, and to really acknowledge all their hard work and sacrifice in their care for patients and each other. Hands of the healer.
Pandemic NHS Lothian's response to COVID-19 is now available to watch online. Indigo Stafford, STV News.
Other stories across Scotland, and more than 200 people have come forward to give evidence of racism in cricket in Scotland. An independent review was set up after Scotland's all-time leading wicket-taker, Majid Haq, accused Cricket Scotland of being institutionally racist.
A P&O ferry which broke down in the Irish Sea on its way to Scotland has been cleared to sail again. The European causeway lost power on Tuesday and was adrift for more than an hour. The Maritime and Coast Guard agency say they're satisfied it is now safe.
Firefighters in the Highlands have been battling a major wildfire in hills near Kyle of Lochalsh. A helicopter has been used to waterbomb the blaze, which broke out yesterday and stretched for 3 miles. There have been no reports of injuries.
All right, well, Scotland Tonight is on at 8:30 here on STV, where Emma Cameron hears from parents who've given up their career to look after their children.
Nicola is a mum of 2 who had to leave her job as a medical secretary because of the cost of childcare.
I just knew it wasn't going to be an option, because if I was to go back to work part-time, my part-time wage would have literally have covered those costs. But I didn't want to go back to work full-time and then miss out all that time with my baby.
Soaring childcare prices are not the only issue for families. There's a lack of flexibility at most providers too.
This facility here in Dundee is one of a kind, offering services from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m, which are bookable by the hour.
This service provides flexible childcare. You can change your booking pattern from one week to the next. We don't charge upfront fees and we don't charge deposits.
The costs to run a nursery seem like they are pretty significant, but it also costs a lot for families too.
It is an expensive business to run. It's not a business that people are generating huge profits from. It is a high cost for parents. It's often as big as, if not bigger than, your housing costs, whatever they may be. So it's very difficult.
And finding someone to look after your child is also proving to be a challenge.
There is no childminders I can find around here whatsoever.
Single dad Andrew from Dunfermline is juggling a full-time college course in childcare as well as being the sole carer for his 5-year-old daughter Maya.
I'm behind because of it now, because I'm missing days here and there because of the childcare situation. It feels like I'm trying to better myself but getting knocked back all the time, and you're not getting that opportunity to be who you want to be.
And you can see Emma's full report on Scotland Tonight at 8:30 this evening.
Apologies for not bringing you the story we said we would at the beginning of the story, but families who lost loved ones to COVID in Scotland's care homes taking legal action. Technical problems got in the way. Hopefully we will have that on the late news this evening. Now to sport, it's a huge night for Rangers. They're in European semi-final action tonight in Germany, and Rahman is there for us.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sports, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
A very good evening from the Red Bull Arena, the home of RB Leipzig. It won't be long until the Rangers squad make their way here ahead of tonight's huge match, the Europa League semi-final first leg. I can tell you the atmosphere has been building throughout the day, and the Rangers fans have certainly been making themselves heard. The Rangers fans have travelled to Leipzig in their numbers, taking over the city centre, and they are in buoyant mood ahead of tonight's match.
Pretty confident. We've beat Dortmund already, so I think we could beat Leipzig.
I'm really excited. I've always dreamed of watching Rangers play abroad, and my dad's always said, never seen them play till you've seen them abroad, so I'm quite nervous right enough.
Who would you like to see playing up top?
Kane up front, playing for a 4-3-3.
Bennett is from Hamburg. He'll also be cheering on Rangers inside the stadium tonight. So why are you backing Rangers tonight?
Because due to a long friendship between Hamburg and Rangers, I learned the culture.
The importance of the fans' backing is not lost on Giovanni van Bronckhorst, who's plotting RB Leipzig's downfall.
It's always a factor when you have a lot of fans travelling with you. We've had that the whole season when we play abroad. You know, the fan base who travel with us is amazing. Of course, it feels playing a little bit like home when you're away. And as you asked for Leipzig, I think it's a very strong team, a very attacking team with very a lot of pace up front.
The last time Rangers reached the semi-finals of this competition was back in 2008 under Walter Smith. Kevin Thompson was part of the team.
What was the message from the management team going into the semi-final?
Belief. I think back to that Fiorentina team, over in Florence, like Christian Vieri's, like guys that had played it, albeit he was at the wrong end of his career. But they had top players, international players right through the squad. So I think the manager installed belief in that group that no matter who you played against, whether it was Ronaldinho's, Messi's at Ibrox, the team believed that we could compete with anyone. And I think this team's the same.
Former Celtic defender Andreas Hinkel is now the assistant manager of RB Leipzig. He's revealed he's spoken to Parkhead assistant John Kennedy to get the lowdown on Rangers. Hinkel has been impressed by the Ibrox club.
Rangers, I think they are good in counter-attacks as well. Strong defending. So they didn't qualify for the semi-finals just to qualify. They beat some good competitors in this competition. So it's going to be really tough and hard to play against them.
All eyes now on the Red Bull Arena. Well, joining us now is Joshua Barry, writer for the Rangers Review. Good to see you, Joshua. You covered Rangers extensively in Europe this season. What has impressed you most?
I think the natural progression. You've seen under Steven Gerrard there was the solidity of the first few campaigns, but this season's just been something entirely different. I think the fans being back, the squad maybe peaking in their fourth year, and also a new manager with his tactical variability has led this team to some famous results and ultimately the semi-final.
What sort of challenge awaits them tonight?
Probably their biggest in 4 years. I mean, I think Dortmund, as good as they were, Rangers maybe caught them at a slightly opportune time in hindsight. They still had to go and win the game, and Dortmund couldn't beat them over 2 ties, but Leipzig are a really strong opponent. I think they'll be the toughest opposition
Rangers have only got one fit striker, Fashion Sakala. Does he play him tonight up top?
I don't know. I don't think Sakala's at his best when he's playing with his back to goal. You've seen that in the previous round against Braga. I think maybe him off the left, Joe Rebo to bring people into play, maybe play as a false nine with Sakala and Kent off the sides. I think that would give probably Rangers a better option than Sakala through the middle.
And in terms of individuals, who's impressed you most for Rangers?
Probably Lundstrom, John Lundstrom, as well as Ryan Kent, and I say that as well as the obvious Tavernier and Kent. Lundstrom, I think, is a difference between previous European campaigns. He gives them physicality in the middle of the pitch. He wins 1v1 battles. I think he'll be really important tonight.
And the big games just keep coming, don't they? Yeah. Semi-final tonight and the big derby against Celtic this weekend.
Another old firm, but you've seen 2 weeks ago after the Braga game, Rangers did pretty well in that as well. So I think the focus will be on tonight, but with such a big game around the corner, I'm sure they'll turn their attention to it right after.
Quick prediction?
We'll go with 1-1, 2-1 to Rangers next week.
Thanks very much, Joshua, for joining us tonight. Well, that's just all about sport for me tonight. Go head on to the STV Sport website and blog for all of our build-up tonight.
Fill of the Action, STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Now to the weather with Philip. It's been fairly standard all week, and as I told you last night, he said not much is changing, and it still isn't.
Today's outlook is becoming more and more unsettled. TUI Blue Hotels, sponsor STV Weather.
Well, as we head through the rest of this evening and overnight, generally there is a lot of cloud around, particularly further east and south, where we could see one or two isolated showers. Elsewhere, though, we do have some clear skies, so here temperatures could drop away quite quickly. Could see a touch of frost, with temperatures getting down to around -1 or -2. For most built-up cities, though, sitting in the mid-single figures. Now, looking ahead to tomorrow, we will start the day with some clear and bright skies, particularly across central, southern and western areas. Further east, though, we are still holding on to a bit of cloud, and here we could see some further showery outbreaks of rain through the afternoon. In the best of the sunshine, it will be feeling pleasantly warm, highs of around 16 or 17 degrees Celsius, so up a few degrees from today and yesterday. Now, looking ahead to Saturday, unfortunately, the weather does start to take a bit of a change for the weekend. We've got low pressure moving in from the northwest. That's pushing in some frontal systems and bands of rain. That rain will steadily start to sink southeastwards through the course of the afternoon, and we'll also start to feel a little bit cooler, temperatures reaching highs of around 12 or 13 degrees. Bye-bye.
TUI Blue Hotels, sponsor STV Weather.
Well, that's all from us in the studio tonight, but we're going out of the studio to end with something special this evening.
Indeed we are. The Ukrainian National Opera is performing here in Edinburgh tonight in a show that, against all the odds, is still going on. Some of the performers have lost friends and family in the conflict, but they spoke to our reporter Polly Bartlett, who is there in Edinburgh for us tonight.
That's right. The Edinburgh Playhouse stage is usually home to some of the world's biggest stars, but tonight really is going to be incredibly special. Solomia, you're performing tonight, but it must have been an incredibly difficult journey to get to this point.
Yes, indeed. It was a long tour, 3 months here in the United Kingdom, and finally we are here in Edinburgh. But a lot of unpredictable things happened during this tour to us.
Yeah, of course. And so much is going on back home, but why was it important that you still performed this tour?
It's very important for us because art is international language, and we are happy to bring our art here to United Kingdom and to Scotland, Edinburgh, and we will just share our message and our culture to United Kingdom.
Well, we can't wait to learn about your culture tonight. The Ukrainian National Opera will be performing here until Saturday, and we thought how better to end tonight's show than with a traditional Ukrainian melody. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you.